My parents ditched my wedding for a last-minute cruise deal. They laughed when I asked why, saying, "It's not like it was a royal wedding." That betrayal broke something in me, and I decided they didn't deserve a place in my life anymore. I never thought I'd be the kind of person who'd cut off her own parents. I mean, who does that, right? When I was a kid, our life looked picture perfect from the outside. We had the white picket fence, the neat green lawn, the shiny cars in the driveway. On Sundays, we'd sit down to roast chicken and mashed potatoes like we were living in a Hallmark card. But behind all that, behind the small talk and the fake smiles, were cracks we didn't talk about. Big ones. My name's Sarah, and if you had told me 10 years ago that I'd be raising a family without my mom and dad anywhere near it, I wouldn't have believed you. I'm 32 now, married to a man who makes me feel safe and seen, and I have a little girl who calls me Mama, with the sweetest voice you've ever heard. We've got another baby coming in the fall, and our home is full of laughter, chaos, and love. But there's also silence, intentional silence. And that silence came after years of pretending things were okay, after years of showing up for people who didn't show up for me. If you're wondering how it got to this point, why I chose to leave my parents out of my life completely, it didn't happen overnight. It started slow, little comments, dismissive jokes, emotional distance dressed up as tough love. And when the most important moment of my life came, my wedding, they showed me exactly where I stood. They said it wasn't important, that it was too far, too expensive, too much of a hassle. They said they'd try to make it, but not to expect anything. And when the day came, they didn't show. No call, no message, no apology, just silence. That was the day I finally stopped trying to earn their love, because love isn't something you should have to earn, not from your parents. So if you've ever felt like the people who should love you the most are the ones who hurt you the deepest, keep listening. This story's for you. My parents, Carol and Ted, had a favorite child, and everyone in our family knew it, even if no one ever said it out loud. My brother Tyler was their golden boy. The rules never really applied to him. He could crash the family car, and somehow it became a funny story at dinner. He could skip school and still get praised for being independent. He could get caught shoplifting at 17, and Mom would still make his favorite lasagna that night because he had a rough day. But me? I was the one who was supposed to hold everything together. I got straight A's because I had to. I cleaned the kitchen without being asked. I helped carry groceries, babysit cousins, and never once talked back. And yet, the more I tried to be perfect, the more invisible I became. They never noticed the effort, only the gaps. There was one Christmas that still lives in my mind even now. I was 12 years old and so excited to give them something meaningful. I spent weeks working on a scrapbook. I filled it with family photos, drawings, little handwritten notes about trips we took, inside jokes, things I thought would make them smile. I stayed up late gluing, cutting, organizing it all just right. I wrapped it with tissue paper and ribbon, heart pounding when I placed it under the tree. Tyler, on the other hand, grabbed a chipped mug from the dollar store on Christmas Eve, didn't even wrap it properly. Just tossed it in a plastic bag and threw it at them with a smirk. And still, when they opened his gift, Mom squealed like he just handed her diamonds. "You're so thoughtful, Ty," she beamed, hugging him like he'd won an award. Then came my turn. I watched them tear the wrapping off my scrapbook and give it a half glance. "That's nice, Sarah," Dad said flatly, before setting it aside like it was a catalog. I don't think they ever opened it again. I didn't say anything, I just nodded and pretended it didn't hurt. But it did. Deeply. That moment wasn't some isolated fluke, it was just one in a long, steady line of little cuts. Birthdays forgotten, dance recitals missed. Every time Tyler messed up, it was excused or explained away. Every time I slipped, it was a disappointment. When I didn't get into my top college pick, Mom didn't comfort me. She asked why I hadn't worked harder. When I got my first job, they barely reacted. But when Tyler got hired at a car dealership after 3 other jobs he quit, they threw a cookout and invited the whole neighborhood. It was exhausting, trying to be enough for people who only had eyes for someone else. As I got older, I tried to tell myself it was just in my head, that maybe I was overthinking, but time kept proving me wrong. My parents weren't cruel, they just made it clear, over and over again, that Tyler came first, that I was expected to carry the emotional load of the family, to make things easier for everyone else, even if no one ever did the same for me. And maybe that's why, When it came time to plan my wedding, I still hoped they'd show up for me. I was engaged to someone amazing, someone who made me feel seen in a way I never had growing up. We were planning a small ceremony at a vineyard, something intimate and meaningful. I sent out invitations with a little handwritten note to my parents saying how much it would mean to have them there. I waited weeks, no RSVP, no call, nothing. Finally, I called. I remember sitting on the floor in our apartment, invitations still taped to the fridge behind me. My mom answered with a sigh, like I was interrupting something. I asked if they got the invite. She said yes. I asked if they were coming. She paused, then said, "Sarah, we're not sure we'll make it. It's just not that important." I didn't even know how to respond. Not important? My wedding? The biggest moment of my adult life? A chance for them to finally say, "We see you, we're proud of you, we love you"? But no. Just a shrug. Just a casual dismissal like I'd asked them to help move a couch or something. I felt my chest tighten. I didn't cry, not then. I just nodded and hung up. That conversation changed something in me. It wasn't just about the wedding. It was about every moment before it, all the little signs I ignored, all the times I told myself maybe next time they'd show up, maybe next time they'd care. But that call was the last straw. That was the moment I realized I'd been holding space for people who never once held it for me, that I'd spent my whole life chasing scraps of affection from people who didn't even notice when I was starving. And I was done. This pattern didn't fade as I got older. It followed me into every corner of adulthood. When Tyler flunked out of his first-choice college and barely scraped into a mediocre state school, my parents threw him a party like he'd graduated from Harvard. Balloons, cake, even a banner that said "Congrats, grad," like it was the proudest day of their lives. When I got a full-ride scholarship to an Ivy League school, I got a stiff handshake from Dad and a warning. Don't let it go to your head. I laughed it off at the time, but it stung. Still, I held on to this hope that if I just kept succeeding, kept checking every box, they'd finally look at me the way they looked at Tyler. So I worked hard. I became a civil engineer, bought my own condo at 27, took care of myself. Then I met Daniel, and everything started to shift. He was kind, gentle, patient. He laughed at my terrible jokes, brought me soup when I was sick, and reminded me every day that I mattered. After 3 years, we got engaged, and I remember thinking, this is it. This is the moment they'll finally be proud of me. But when I called to tell them, Mom didn't even look up from her morning coffee. She just mumbled, that's nice. Dad's only reaction was, "Can he support a family?" I remember blinking in shock. I made more money than Daniel, and we split everything evenly, but that didn't matter to them. Their words sliced through me, but I pushed it aside. I told myself they'd come around eventually. We planned a simple wedding, just 50 guests in a garden. Soft music, vows we wrote ourselves, laughter under twinkle lights. It wasn't flashy, but it was full of love. I sent them an invitation 6 months in advance, followed up with calls each month. I even offered to cover their hotel and flights. They were only 2 states away. Every time, they dodged it. "We'll see," Mom said. "It's a long drive," Dad muttered. Still, I held on to this fragile hope. I pictured them sitting in the front row, wiping tears as I walked down the aisle. The day came. I stood in my dress, bouquet in hand, scanning the crowd. No Mom, no Dad. I kept telling myself maybe their flight was delayed, maybe something came up. I checked my phone over and over. Nothing, no text, no missed call. The music started, and I walked down the aisle, smiling for Daniel, but inside, I was breaking. They didn't come. They didn't even try. I smiled through the vows, laughed at the toasts, danced at the reception, but I felt like a ghost in my own celebration. 2 days later, I got a text from Mom. "Hope the wedding went well. We took a cruise. Deal was too good to pass up." My heart dropped. A cruise. They skipped my wedding for a cruise. I called, hands shaking, voice trembling, not even angry, just hurt. They answered, laughing. I heard glasses clinking, waves in the background. "Don't be dramatic," Dad said with a chuckle. "It's not like it was a royal wedding." Mom added, "We figured you'd be too busy to notice." Too busy to notice? I hung up. Tears rolled down my cheeks before I could even breathe. Daniel held me for hours while I cried, and all he said was, "Their love isn't your fault." He was right, but it didn't make it hurt any less. I spent the next few months slowly cutting them out. No more calls, no more updates. I stopped sending birthday wishes. I didn't even hear from them, not once. The silence said everything. 2 years passed and Daniel and I welcomed our daughter Lily. The second I held her, something inside me changed. Her tiny fingers wrapped around mine, and I made a promise she would never feel unwanted. She would never question if she mattered. I would show up for her every single time, even if no one ever had for me. We didn't tell my parents she was born. We didn't send a photo, didn't even mention her name. 3 months later, I got a voicemail from my mom. A family friend had let it slip. Her voice sounded tight, like she was trying not to sound desperate. "Call me back. We want to meet our granddaughter." I didn't call. I didn't even flinch, because by then I was done begging them to see me. Last year, everything finally came to a head. I got a call from my cousin early one morning. Dad had a stroke. A bad one. He lost movement in his right arm and leg, needed rehab, couldn't walk on his own. I sat on the edge of my bed holding my phone, just staring. I felt something, but it wasn't panic. It wasn't guilt. It was quiet. The kind of quiet that happens when you've already grieved the loss of someone who's still alive. The messages started pouring in. "Mom, Dad, my aunt, can you come help? Just a few weeks. You're the responsible one." Suddenly the daughter, who was never good enough, became the one they depended on. Suddenly I mattered, but only because Tyler, the golden boy, was nowhere to be found. Not a text, not a visit, just vanished. And now they needed the girl who spent her life invisible to show up like nothing ever happened. I didn't reply, not to the first message, not to the second. I kept living my life feeding my daughter breakfast, sending emails for a project I was leading, folding laundry with Daniel while Lily giggled from her playmat, and for the first time, I wasn't weighed down by guilt. Then Mom sent a message that made something snap inside me. It said, "I know you're still upset about the wedding, but family forgives, and we need you now." I read it 3 times. Family forgives. Like I was the one who needed to move on. Like they hadn't skipped my wedding for a cruise. Like I hadn't gone through my most important moments without a single call, hug, or ounce of care. I sat with it for a few hours before I picked up the phone. She answered on the first ring, her voice way too cheerful. "I knew you'd come around," she said, like nothing ever happened. I didn't smile. I didn't soften. I said, "Do you remember when I asked you why you missed my wedding and you laughed?" There was silence on the other end, that kind of silence where the truth finally settles in. "Well," I continued, "I laughed when I saw your message." Her voice broke a little, starting to argue, to defend, to spin it into something forgivable, but I hung up. No shouting, no drama, just done. I opened my phone and blocked her number. Then I blocked Dad's, then Tyler's too, after he had the nerve to text me, "Stop being bitter, they're old." Bitter? No, I wasn't bitter. I was exhausted. I was done begging for crumbs of love from people who gave me nothing but condition. I was done twisting myself into someone who could earn their respect when they never once gave it freely. I was done being the backup plan for people who wouldn't show up for me even when it mattered most. There was no satisfaction in cutting them off, only peace. And sometimes peace doesn't come from getting even. It comes from getting out, from breaking the cycle, from saying, "This ends with me." I didn't light a fire. I just refused to sit in the cold anymore. And the strangest part? The world didn't end. The sky didn't fall. Life kept going. Better, actually. Lighter. Freer. The silence from them wasn't painful anymore, it was protective. Because after everything, after the years of being pushed aside, ignored, forgotten, I had finally made a choice. I chose myself. I chose the little girl in me who spent every birthday hoping for someone to notice her. Every report card praying for a "we're proud of you." Every holiday trying not to feel second best. I stood up for her. I let her rest. I let her go. It's been a year since I cut them off, and in that time, something inside me has quietly healed. Daniel and I are expecting our second child, and Lily, now 3, is growing into the kind of child I used to dream about. Curious, wild, full of light. She asks a million questions a day, insists on bedtime stories even when she's already half asleep, and runs through the house with sticky fingers and unmatched socks like she owns the world. Our life is far from perfect. There are tantrums, spilled juice, nights when no one gets enough sleep, but it's real, it's warm. And for the first time in my life, I don't feel like I'm faking happiness just to survive. I'm actually living it. Every morning starts with Lily jumping into our bed, and every night ends with quiet talks on the couch, while Daniel and I sip lukewarm coffee and listen to the ocean of baby monitors and soft snoring. It's not glamorous, but it's full of love. And that's something I never truly had growing up. For years, I chased my parents' approval like it was the only kind of love that mattered. I thought if I was perfect enough, quiet enough, smart enough, helpful enough, they'd finally see me. But all it ever did was wear me down. I bent over backwards and they never even looked up. So when I cut them out, it wasn't revenge. It was survival. It was me finally saying enough. And the strange thing is, once I made that choice, the world didn't fall apart. In fact, it got better. It got lighter. I used to believe family meant blood, that you stuck it out no matter what, that loyalty to your parents came before your own peace. But now I know better. Family is who shows up. It's who calls just to hear your voice, who sees you cry and doesn't flinch, who loves you without keeping score. It's the people who don't just show up when it's convenient, but when it's hard, when it's uncomfortable, when it matters most. My parents showed me who they were again and again, and I finally believed them. I stopped hoping they'd change. I stopped handing them the power to hurt me. And once I stopped reaching for something that was never going to be there, I realized how much room I had to build something better. Now when I laugh, it's real. I don't have to force a smile. I don't feel like I'm performing for people who never clapped. I don't walk on eggshells waiting for the next disappointment. I look around my home, at Daniel, at Lily's little shoes by the door, at the half-colored drawings taped to our fridge, and I feel full. I feel like I made something out of nothing, like I turned pain into peace. And most of all, I feel proud not because I did it alone, but because I finally stopped trying to carry people who never carried me. My parents missed my wedding. They missed the birth of my daughter. They missed the moment I stopped needing their love to feel whole. And honestly, I don't think they even realized what they lost. But I did. I lost years of pretending, and now I've gained a life where I am loved without question, where I get to love without fear. And that's what matters. When I look at Lily, I make a promise to her and to myself. She'll never have to beg for love. She won't have to prove her worth to earn a hug. She won't have to wonder if she's enough, because she'll hear it every single day from me, from Daniel, from a home that tells her she belongs. And when our second child arrives, they'll walk into a world where love isn't a reward, it's the foundation. That's the legacy I'm leaving, not the one I was given, but the one I'm building from scratch. A family built on laughter, grace, and choice. A family where I love you is never followed by but. A family that doesn't need cruises, big banners, or fancy approval distance, just presence, just heart. And that to me is everything.